The humiliation happened in front of everyone. In the glass-walled boardroom of a towering Manhattan corporate headquarters, a janitor in a faded gray uniform stood quietly holding a mop bucket, waiting to finish a simple cleaning task. The city. Outside glowed with morning sunlight, but inside that room the air felt cold, sharp, and unforgiving. Executives sat around a polished table worth more than most people earned in a year, and at the head of it sat CEO Victor Langford, a man known for his ambition, his temper, and his belief that power meant everything. No one noticed the janitor at first. That was the point. But Victor did. And what happened next would destroy the illusion of authority he had built his entire life. Before we continue this emotional and powerful journey, if you believe in kindness, dignity, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Home with Dad. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories that remind us what humanity truly means. The janitor's name was Marcus Reed. To everyone in the building, he was invisible. A background figure, someone who cleaned messes and never made them. He arrived before sunrise and left after midnight. He never complained, never spoke more than necessary. His presence was so quiet that most employees didn't even know his name, but Marcus was not what they thought he was. Not even close. That morning, Victor Langford was under pressure. A major investor deal was collapsing, stocks were unstable, and the board was demanding answers. His patience was already thin when he noticed a water spill near the conference table. He snapped his fingers sharply without looking at Marcus, expecting instant obedience. When Marcus approached calmly to clean it, Victor's irritation turned into something sharper. He questioned why someone like him was even allowed in such a high-level space. His words were not just harsh, they were degrading. He spoke as if Marcus did not belong in the same world as the executives sitting around him. The room stayed silent. No one defended Marcus. No one even looked at him. Marcus simply lowered his gaze and continued cleaning, but something in his expression changed for just a moment. A flicker. A memory buried deep. Then it was gone again. Victor, satisfied with his display of dominance, returned to discussing business as if nothing had happened. But something had already shifted, and it would not stay buried for long. Marcus Reed went back to his duties after. The meeting ended, pushing his cleaning cart through endless corridors of glass and steel. But inside him, the weight of that moment lingered. Years ago, he had stood in places far more dangerous than this building. Places where silence meant survival, and courage meant everything. Before the uniform of a janitor, he had worn the uniform of the United States Air Force, serving as a highly trained pilot in missions that required precision, discipline, and absolute calm under pressure. He had saved lives in the sky when everything was falling apart on the ground, but that life had ended the day everything changed during a mission that never left his memory. A mechanical failure, a forced emergency landing, and the loss of his co-pilot had taken something from him that never fully returned. The medals remained in a locked box he never opened. The sky, once his home, became a reminder of pain, and so he disappeared from that world, not because he was weak, but because he was tired. Tired of loss. Tired of noise. Tired of being someone who only felt alive when everything around him was breaking. So he chose silence instead. A janitor's uniform instead of a pilot's wings. A quiet life instead of the sky. Days passed after the boardroom incident, but something unusual began to happen inside the company. Employees started noticing inconsistencies in a major operational system that was tied to aviation logistics contracts. A critical software failure threatened millions in losses. Panic began spreading among executives. Victor Langford, once confident, became increasingly desperate. Meetings grew longer, voices louder, pressure heavier, and Marcus Reed continued cleaning floors like nothing was happening, until the day everything collapsed. The system failure escalated into a full crisis. A major client threatened to pull out. Flights tied to the company's logistics network were at risk of being grounded. The board demanded immediate action, but no one could find a solution. Victor stood in the center of the executive floor, shouting orders that led nowhere. For the first time in years, he looked uncertain, and then, quietly, Marcus walked into the room, not to interrupt, not to interfere, but because a warning light near the server room had triggered something in him, something familiar, something he had seen before in control panels thousands of feet above the earth. He paused, watching the panic unfold. Then, without being asked, he stepped forward. One of the junior staff tried to stop him, reminding him that he was just maintenance. But Marcus ignored him and moved toward the central system display. His eyes scanned the data rapidly, not like a janitor, but like a trained pilot reading instrument failure patterns mid-flight. Within seconds, he understood what was happening. It wasn't just a software glitch. It was a cascading failure that mirrored something he had once survived in the air, and instinct took over. He began issuing calm instructions, not loudly, not aggressively, but with absolute certainty. He pointed out the exact sequence of failures, the timing of system overloads, and the hidden redundancy error that no one else had noticed. At first, the executives hesitated, but then they realized something terrifying. He was right. Victor Langford watched in disbelief as the janitor he had humiliated earlier began solving a crisis that his entire team could not understand. The same man he had dismissed as irrelevant was now the only person in the room providing clarity. Marcus worked with precision, guiding technicians through corrective actions step by step. His voice remained steady, controlled, almost detached, but every movement carried the discipline of someone who had once controlled multi-million-dollar aircraft systems in the sky. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, after intense coordination, the system stabilized. A collective silence fell over the room. Chakaji, crisis was over. Victor approached Marcus slowly, for the first time seeing him not as a janitor, but as something else entirely. Something he had failed to recognize. He demanded answers. And Marcus finally spoke, not with pride, but with quiet honesty. He revealed that he had once served as an Air Force pilot, trained in high-risk operations, responsible for lives and missions that required absolute focus. He explained that after losing his co-pilot in a tragic incident, he had left everything behind, unable to continue in a world that reminded him too much of what he lost. The room stood frozen. The same man who had been humiliated for cleaning. Floors had once flown through storms and danger where most people would not survive a minute. Victor's confidence shattered in that moment. Not because Marcus had been angry, but because he had not been. In the days that followed, everything changed. Inside the company, word spread quietly at first, then widely, about the janitor who had saved a multi-million-dollar operation. But Marcus did not seek recognition. He did not return to the spotlight. He continued his work, arriving early, leaving late, moving quietly, through hallways as if nothing had changed. But Victor Langford was no longer the same man. He began seeing the building differently. He began seeing people differently, and most of all, he began seeing the weight of every word he had ever spoken. Eventually, he called Marcus into his office, not to assign him work, but to apologize. For the first time in his life, Victor Langford lowered his pride. Marcus did not demand revenge. He did not ask for promotion or money. Instead, he asked for something simpler, respect, for everyone in the building, no matter their position. Because he knew what it felt like to be reduced to nothing in the eyes of others, and Victor agreed. Months later, the company launched a new internal program inspired by Marcus's story, focused on recognizing hidden talent within overlooked employees. Workers who had once been invisible were now given opportunities to train, grow, and be seen. And Marcus Reed? He remained there. Still quiet, still humble, but no longer invisible. One evening, as the sun set over Manhattan and golden light filled the glass walls of the building, Victor stood near the entrance and watched Marcus leave for the day. For a moment, he realized something profound. Power was never about position. It was about character, and character had walked through his office in a faded gray uniform and saved everything he had built. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that no one should ever be judged by their job or appearance, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video with others who believe in respect, dignity, and second chances. Your support means everything. And before we end, a special request, please comment below. What would you have done if you were Victor in that moment? Marcus Reed once flew in the sky where only the brave survive. But his greatest flight was teaching a man on the ground how to finally see people as human again.